connected with technology. So before we commence, let me remind you again that the meeting will hopefully be recorded and subsequently posted to the authorities YouTube channel. Thank you for your forbearance during the earlier meeting. I hope that will continue to set there through this extraordinary meeting of the authority. Do we have any apologies for
Councillor M. Hussain, OBE.
Chairman, apologies. I think it should also be. I realised I missed this the last meeting, but I should apologise for Phil Gone as well.
Oh, I haven't received any from him. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Do we have any further disclosure of interest? I very much doubt anything's happened in the intervening period since the last meeting, so assume the answer is no. Similarly, item 3, Chairman's announcements. There's nothing. Yep. Item 6, the on-call improvement programme update, which is to be presented by the Chief Fire Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. So I'm pleased to introduce the on-call improvement programme update. And this forms, as you know, the first year of a 5-year programme of improvement under the CRMP 25 to 30. The report highlights the work that has been ongoing for many years to address the on-call model, which we know up until now and to date has been largely inefficient and effective for quite a period of time now. And I gave a commitment to the authority when I became chair to drive improvement and change. And so this year we have committed to doing that. We've pulled together a small dedicated team to focus solely on driving improvement with our on-call model because we recognise it's a significant area that we need to improve. They've been analysing our data and information in order to begin crafting some of those options for dialogue which have been spoken about today. So the report highlights the challenges with on-call, but also highlights hopefully the significant amount of work that's been undertaken to address the long-standing issues with availability, sustainability and the effectiveness of what is, we recognise, an outdated on-call model. Chair, I just wanted to put on record, if I may, that this service is blessed to have really incredible, dedicated and committed on-call staff whose desire to serve the communities is not in doubt. But as the report highlights, there are a myriad of challenges that are facing on-call and they are not exclusive to this service. So I hope the report illustrates that we've taken a whole systems approach to this problem due to its complexity and the many nuances that impacts on-call availability. And the team are working across multiple work streams, from seeking to make improvements with our recruitment campaigns, with reviewing the current contracts that we offer our on-call staff, looking at workforce planning, and even considering where we might replace and reinvest more specialist vehicles. So the report seeks to set out at this stage the works that have been done and the works that will continue to be done up to any prior public consultation, which is clearly subject to your approval in November. I do need to just add a clarification to the text in section 2.2 paragraph 2, which is on page 9 of the report, page 18 of the pack, that the series of workshops that we've spoken about mentioned before have not exclusively been with lead members. So I think it just picks up the point that Councillor Mouse raised. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's been positively engaged in dialogue with us, everyone from officers, on-call staff, rep bodies, authority members. We are committed to getting this right, and certainly with the collaborative spirit that I've seen so far, I think that's instrumental in making sure that we are able to shape the proposals that we're talking about and ensure the improvement programme moves us forward based on fact data. And aligned with our strategic priorities and our values. As you know, it's a complex and sensitive area of work, and I'm really proud with the way our teams have approached it. and we have been really clear from the outset that we have wanted to put integrity and total transparency at the heart of what we're doing. So I commend the report, which I will take as read, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. It's a very comprehensive report, and I'm grateful to you and the team for putting that together. I'm sure members are also. I think it might be helpful if I'm quite happy to take questions that relating to clarifying any items in the report. So, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. Those of you that were here a year ago when I was lead member for people might recall that I did some work with officers regarding our whole time establishment and the fact that only 44 of our 300 and odd whole time actually retain for us. And I thought we were going to go away and do some work on that, because obviously that would be a huge benefit to get those firefighters that are living in our communities to retain weekends and possibly evenings. I had a visit from a neighbouring fire service to my house last month, and he did a very good job of sweeping my chimney, because that's what he does when he has his 3 or 4 days off. He goes out sweeping chimneys, and he lives in Buckinghamshire, and he's perhaps one of the kind of people that, well, you know, he's with another brigade, but, you know, he could do some retaining for us. And I wonder if we could do some more work on trained whole-time firefighters that live and breathe in Buckinghamshire, and what we have to do to attract them to actually retain for us in our communities and in those stations that need extra staff.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Not entirely a question of clarification of an item in the report, but Simon might want to respond to that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hall. Your point's really well made. I haven't got to hand the numbers of our whole times for on call, but I'll get that for you, because I think it's increased since we spoke about that a year ago. And you're absolutely right about any opportunities that we can have for whole time firefighters to become on call will be a positive. They're already trained, so that's helpful, and they have the opportunity to earn some more money and serve the community with where they live. So it's a real positive. And your points around the over the border as well, particularly with the Thames Valley, because we train to very similar standards and very similar equipment. So those kind of transfers are much easier than they were years ago. So thank you. Points well made.
Next.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take your invitation on clarification, but I will cover this in a bit more depth when I speak on the main body of the report, and that relates to section 2.5 MP engagement. And I think there's another section, but I just want to place on record, and the Chief Fire Officer knows this, that this is not strictly factually correct. Indeed, 2 Buckinghamshire MPs wrote to the Chief Fire Officer off the back of the Fair Funding Review on the 5th of September, requesting a briefing in relation to this piece of work. They were told that they would be briefed, but no briefing was established. They then received a letter, as all MPs did, and indeed as group leaders saw, on the 26th of September, but that was after the issue of this on-call service had come into the public domain via their petition. So I think it is worth understanding that the letter was sent out. It's written in this to imply that engagement was underway. It was underway as a specific result of the petitions and following 3 weeks of failing to engage with those members of Parliament. I also just want to clarify that it isn't true that the actions that those members of Parliament were taking with their petition, the officers weren't aware of it. Officers were made aware that those petitions were going live that day. Now, I accept officers may have wanted longer, but they were nonetheless advised before those petitions and any social media activity went live. And indeed, officers and the service had 4 days, or in fact, the authority, and I do want to get to this critical point of the authority versus service later on, the authority had 4 days in which it had time to respond to the media that with the press release that was put forward before that press release went into the public domain. And I just think it's unfortunate that those facts aren't represented in the report.
Thank you, councillor Rose. I'm not entirely sure that, well, you obviously have your own view on the order in which things happened. I'm confident that the chief fire officer responded in all good faith. But if Louise has anything to add, I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. It was just a point of clarity, really, and I suspect probably more timing issues than anything else. I took the decision to brief our staff first on what was happening with on-call consultation. I thought that was incredibly important. You're right, we did speak to, and I did write a letter to the MPs around the fair funding review. But I was very, very mindful that I did not want to conflate the issue of cuts with the on-call improvement programme. And I just wanted to clarify again that the on-call improvement programme is not about making cuts. It is about making efficiencies, reducing waste, and actually improving the service. So I take your points. They aren't, they're noted, Councillor. Thank you. But for the record, I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. I think that
Chairman, it's an important fact. So I just want us to be really clear. I'm not criticising officers for staff consultation. You know, I think that's the right thing to do. But just for the timeline is clear, staff consultation briefing took place on the 26th of August. The MPs wrote on the 5th of September. Staff consultation had concluded by that stage. Pre-public consultation had started mid-September. MPs received a letter on the 26th of September when it had concluded. That's the critical timeline. That is not in dispute. And if it is in dispute, I'd like to hear it's in dispute, Chairman.
Thank you, councillor. As your comments on that are noted, I'm sure are taken on board.
Firstly, can I thank the chief officer for the report. I think it's a balanced report. I think it's been drafted, putting forward exactly what's going on. If you draw yourself to the conclusions on page 7, I think one of the heaviest parts of the report we must be minded to was the reports on the ICF, because that draws the conclusions, and it draws the conclusions and its current cost of the criteria around £1.2 million. The figures covered in the pumps exclusion, and which I think is important to get those figures out and be open and clarity. He also, if you drift the report down, and it's very interesting to see the scale of decline, not through lack of effort, but for whatever. If you look at the pages 13 to 14, and you look at the realities around retained firemen leaving and coming into the service, despite everyone's efforts, and I believe the previous people who run the authority tried hard to retain firefighters. Would never go down the road of making claims that they didn't. I think that shows the scale of the issue that we are dealing with and how it needs to be carefully considered, carefully looked at, and with cool, calm heads. Now, I'm always impressed personally about writing to MPs. I'm also quite impressed with the amount this come through. We must remember that the first rule, in my opinion, is staff. Second rule is responsibility, and third rule is be correct. So I think this report reconcile that, and I note the comments of the chief officer about her timing around her responsibility to her employees, and that is the right thing to be. So those 2 points in this report, I'd like the clarity around, because they actually, I think, are 2 key issues: the HMRC and the decline in ability to recruit, which brings us to the reason for the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. Certainly around the HMICFRS findings. Yeah, so over the last 2 full inspections, they have identified that there is work to be done to improve the way that we manage risk and manage our resources. That's very much about what we're trying to achieve, and the report just broadly tries to articulate that there's a lot of work going on in that area from officers to deliver improvement. We are seeing a considerable amount of improvement in areas from the work that's being undertaken, specifically as the example of the specialist vehicles, and any opportunities where we have been able to move those already have resulted in benefits. So, for example, the operational support unit, which we relocated to only recently, is achieving 91% availability. That's the kind of availability that we're trying to get towards through this improvement plan. And we do have an inspection coming, so we look forward to them coming back next year.
Thank you, Simon.
The other point on the
sorry.
page 5.
Councillor Hussain, please.
Thank you for the report. I'll just go through clarification through stages. On page 17, the last two paragraphs, basically, as I understand it, set the basis of why the work has been undertaken. And then when we go to page 6, or page 15 of the pack, or page 6 of the report, paragraph 2.2, following the Fire Authority's approval of the CRMP in December 2024, and the annual plan was approved by the authority on the 12th of February. As I understand it, that means that is when the go-ahead was given to do the work for this. And if you read, then go back to next steps, it says on page 11, the intention is that on the 12th of November 2025, consultation materials will be presented to the Fire Authority for approval. Now, as I understand it, you've been given a reason to do some work, you're doing that work, and that work has been approved in December and February. And now, hopefully, in the next meeting on the 12th, you'll come to us with the full board with some consultation papers on some proposals. Is that a correct reading of this report?
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Who's going to take that?
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. I think, so again, more broadly around the whole report, what we're trying to update members and public with is that there is a long history to on-call improvement.
The last page.
Members that have been on the authority for a long time will know that we had an acute focus on our whole time improvement a number of years ago. And that was our area for improvement from the 2022 report. We are now turning our focus more closely to on-call. That's definitely true. And we have set out within the CRMP the areas that we want to explore and we want to look at. But I do want to just stress that there is a broad range of things that we are trying to do to improve the function of the on-call. Currently, on average, we get 1 to 2 out of our on-call fire engines available on a day or a night, so a little bit more at night. And we're trying to improve that through a range of things. But we are meeting our response standard. I want to be clear about that. We're meeting our response standard with the appliances that we have available reliably through our whole time. The on-call, future of the on-call, we see very much around the resilience of the service for major incident and times when we have simultaneous activity.
Thank you, Simon, for that input. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. More basic question of clarification. In paragraph or section 3.6 of workforce planning, paragraph 3, it talks about our on-call recruitment campaign, which has attracted over 29 applicants to date. That's certainly something I asked a question about at the Overview and Audit Committee in response to the internal audit report on workforce availability. I note in the answer to one of the questions we had at an earlier meeting, question 14, that it's talking about 44 applicants. And I wonder whether that's just a time delay between the production of one report and actually this is movable, which is encouraging that we've had a step up of another 15 applicants over that period of time, and whether you could just clarify the difference in the data, please. Thank you.
Yes, I can clarify that. There's been a bit of a time lag, but I think we confirmed this morning it was 44, which is fantastic news.
As I understand it, that process is closed now and you're now focusing on the interview stage of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, if I can just answer, that's correct. It's closed now. It's 44. So we'll take that forward now in terms of shortlisting, going through our process and procedures.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you. I think my question's probably going to be an answer. I'll just say that I went down to only on the night of the have a go and saw 8 potential recruits who left there absolutely enthused. I saw one the next night in the pub and he was still enthused, so it was good. So it's been a long journey for Only in itself to get to where it is, and if we can use that as an exemplar, I think it would be good going forward. So well done to the team.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. Do I have any further questions leading to clarity of the report? Otherwise, I propose that the report is noted.
Chairman, apologies. We haven't made points on the report because those were questions for clarification. So we wish to make comments on the report. In which case that was not clear to members. So we wish to make comments on the report because I'll place on record now we will be declining to note the report. So we wish to make comments on the report, Chairman.
Councillor Rouse, we're not here to have a series of political grandstanding. We're here to consider a serious report from the Chief Fire Officer. I've invited questions to clarity on that report. It's clear on the agenda that this report was for noting, and I see no reason to go beyond what I have suggested.
Chairman, I'm afraid that's not your decision. So, Chairman, I wish to make some further questions of clarification on the report.
If there are questions of clarification, I'll take them. It's a limited amount of time that I'm afraid to do.
You may not thank me for this, Chairman, but it does actually say on the agenda to consider item 6 as opposed to note it. And therefore, I think that would, my understanding of receive and consider would promote a discussion. But in the interest of openness, I think the agenda I've got in front of me says to consider item 6.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I think I've made clear that my view, but I'm anxious to be cooperative to all members here today. And in the light of that, we'll move on to an opportunity to discuss the report in a wider sense.
Thank you, Chairman. So it doesn't give me any pleasure to say this. And I want to start by being really clear that it is the responsibility of officers to, using the CRMP, and Councillor saying, I just want to be really clear with you, the Community Risk Management Plan is a 5-year plan that is meant to set strategic direction and priorities for the service against its risk backdrop and to give officers the flexibility to adapt the service against changing landscape in that period. The reason we brought it forward was because the previous public safety plan was insufficient in the flexibility it afforded officers. That was not a mandate to cut fire engines. It was a mandate to look at what the service needed. So attempts to try and link the two, frankly, show a lack of understanding of the CRMP. It doesn't give me any pleasure to say this, but this is without doubt the worst paper that has been put in front of the Fire Authority in my time on the Fire Authority. It is riddled with panic and it is riddled with, frankly, what I would describe as a give-up approach to on-call. Let me just set out some facts that I think are important. So firstly, it is the responsibility of officers to set out challenges to the authority about how the service should develop. That is something that I absolutely welcome and have always welcomed, and the service has moved forward as a result of that. And the Deputy Chief Fire Officer set out that our challenge in the last few years has been getting to full-time, whole-time firefighter numbers. And when you see the availability now of the whole-time engines, you can see the benefit of that work. We are in the foothills of addressing on-call, and I'm afraid that it is our responsibility as authority members to bring the balance of what the community will accept when it comes to changes to its service. That is why I have sat in a room with HMI and disagreed with the HMI about the need to reduce fire engines, because in my view, it damages community confidence when they see assets go. And the strength of this service has always been its community confidence. I have to say that the other issue with this paper is that it takes activities in the past that go back nearly a decade as though they're relevant and then dismisses something that happened 3 years ago in terms of the use of all our fire engines, as though that's some act of historic relevance. That those fire engines were used at a time when we know that the climate is changing. We know in Buckinghamshire that we're going to see a significant number of solar farms, data centres, plus all the housing that has been done. The work is not doing sufficient, is not going into sufficient depth to look at the future requirements of the service. And the backdrop to the February workshop of all executive members was that we required the service to invest. We asked for officers to look at what could be done with the stations. We asked officers to look what could be done with the whole time pump in Princes Risborough. The backdrop was to continue investing. The proposals that are being progressed are simply cuts. They are reductions. I would contend, and the danger, Councillor Statutory, of using numbers that have not been properly thought through, is that 1.2 million is the total cost for on-call. The actual reduction that will arrive from the proposals that went in front of lead members is peanuts. It's barely 1% of the revenue budget of the service. We are going to take the service through a quagmire of community consultation that the community will turn around if given proper options and say it does not want. The reason today that we will not note this report and we will vote to decline the report is this is our first opportunity to stop officers spending more time, more money and more effort on proposals that simply will not get public support. And we are clear, because we've spent time understanding this over the last 3 years, there are better ways of doing this. Proper radical overhaul of on-call recruitment, proper radical overhaul of the way we use stations in rural Buckinghamshire, proper radical overhaul of the different types of appliances that might be used. That's the work that needs to get done. So we will be declining to note the report. We will be calling a recorded vote on the call of report. I'm going to give you a second opportunity, members, to stop these cuts now, because they are the wrong thing for Buckinghamshire and the wrong thing for Milton Keynes.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse. I invite Chief Fire Officer or any further comment. No, I think we have Councillor Hussain.
We have a member of the board. The Chief Fire Officer said that, in reply to my question, that this would be a overall no cuts and investment in the overall service. And yet we've been told by another member of the board that this is doing substantial cuts. I cannot reconcile those two statements. Either there's been cuts in the service or there's reinvestment in the service in another shape or form. Are you saying that the board, is the member saying that the board of the fire service should stay in status forever, no matter what the challenges and the ramifications of population change and population and people working?
I take that as a statement from Councillor Hussain. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I really don't know where to start. Firstly, I'll question you. You've got a figure of 4,000 new homes per year. Where on earth did you get that from? Because I see the total amount of homes being built during the plan period as 165,000, not 95,000. So I'm not sure. 60,000 in Milton Keynes, 105,000 in Buckinghamshire. So the combined county of Buckinghamshire is in growth mode, and it's in big growth mode. So as politicians, leaving the officers completely out of it, we are the people that have to react to that, and we expect all of our services to be in growth mode. We certainly do not expect people like Councillor Stutchbury to willingly chop half of Buckingham Fire Station out. We thought he was Mr. Buckingham. Well, he won't be much longer if they chop the fire engine out of Buckingham. And as politicians, we sit in our communities, we understand our communities, and we are the ones that have to give the service strategic direction. Now, if this report said we're going to do all this, however, we're going to put a whole time pump into High Wycombe, we're going to put an additional one into Aylesbury, then that's a net gain for the public. All I'm seeing here is cuts and no gain whatsoever for the public. And I think it's just a completely unacceptable. And I think there's a lack of political direction currently within this authority. And it really, really does concern me. Now, Councillor Darlington, as she was, now she's an MP, she and I had a really good conversation last year. And I said, you know, how did it go down when we closed Great Holme? And she said it went down in Milton Keynes very, very badly. And she said we got a lot of stick over it, even though there was a net gain with the new blue light hub. People in Milton Keynes, from what Councillor Darlington told me last year, didn't like it and reacted badly. So, you know, the people of Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes, I do not think are going to react very, very well. And I notice all the lead members all trotted out the same very well-rehearsed answers to Councillor Rouse's questions, but really it won't wash, because you put this in front of us, you sanctioned it, you know all about it, you could have challenged this at any stage, but you chose not to. So well, you can answer for yourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I will. You made particular reference to the housing situation. I've been involved in planning on Hillsborough Vale District Council and this council, or Buckinghamshire Council, I should say, for a dozen or so years. It's an area that I do follow closely and I fully understand. The government's housing target for Buckinghamshire is 4,300 houses per annum. That's one single point. At the current time, we are not even achieving the current target of 3,900. So we are a long way from being in a situation where we get to the 95,000 houses, which was a figure posed in a couple of the questions that we had earlier. And I simply conflating the two figures. Houses don't appear overnight in their tens and hundreds of thousands. Typically, developments are built out at 150 houses per annum. And even if we've got a dozen going on at the same time, we'd struggle to get up to the figure. We also have issues to do with land availability. Despite 4 levels of call for sites, in conversation with the corporate director responsible for this, he made it clear to me that even with what has currently been put forward, if we took every sustainable site, we would struggle to reach the numbers. As the important point is that as and when developments come forward and are approved, they are built out over years. The authority will need to match that development to maintain a close eye on the development and select where and when to develop the service to support those areas. It's a fact that new homes are far less at risk than other properties. It is. I see the raised eyebrows of Councillor Rouse. But the fact of the matter is that we have every opportunity to develop the service over that period of time. It's entirely possible that fire authorities may be included in the opportunity to seek Section 106 agreements, which would give us the opportunity to get capital input in relation to potentially, say, a new location in a significant growth area, though it would have to be a very significant growth area to warrant that. There's also community infrastructure levy that potentially could be available. By watching the development and maintaining pace with it, we will be able to take advantage of these things if they're available. We'll also know where to locate the additional services. At the moment, we're still 2 years away from a detailed local plan. What we're actually looking at doing, it seems to me, and I'll come to who's looking at that in a minute. At the current time, I see the proposals that we're moving through as a reset from which we can build to the future so that we address the issues of today and indeed issues that have been building over at least 5 years with the on-call service, and that we begin through that to prepare for the future. I hope that does answer some of the points that, all of the points that you've made, Councillor Hall. Chief, I also like to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. I know Councillor Hussein's comments and Councillor Hall and Councillor Rouse's, and I just wanted to give some reassurance because I can understand, and certainly from any members of the public that are listening to this, they will be confused about what we're talking about today. I just want to be really clear that our focus has always been, as we set our CRMP, our annual plan and our standards and our values, about having the right fire engines in the right places at the right times, supported by dedicated on-call firefighters. And the programme that we are looking to achieve is about ensuring reliability, because we don't have that in all our on-call stations yet, making sure we have resilience in place and reinvesting any savings that we are able to make. And savings are not the thing that is driving this improvement programme. It's not a cost-cutting exercise, but looking to see whether we can replace a traditional fire engine for a smaller rural firefighting unit. As you've seen outside, it doesn't require as many staff to get it out. So therefore, the opportunities of having better availability are increased with this programme. You know, it's a fact that many of our on-call stations continue to suffer long-term dormancy with fire engines there that haven't been used for many years, because we just don't have the staff in the right places to resource them. And that is no reflection on, as I said, the dedicated staff that we've got. I take on board Councillor Rouse's views that this has been rushed, this report, and I will be completely honest and concede, yes, we wanted to get some facts and information out really, really quickly, because part of the process that we are now going through, I think we've only just finished our pre-consultation yesterday, was it? So actually, we haven't had the opportunity to get all the information and all the data out that would support some of the proposals that we are talking about, not proposing as to go forward, but that we are still talking about. And I think that's really important to just re-emphasise. These are still conversations in the early phases to scope what we might be able to do. What I didn't want to do was present those options, as you mentioned, Councillor Hall, about we could replace vehicles here and we could replace them there, because we're not at that stage yet. But I did just want to reassure this authority that we would never consider proposals that would put the community at risk. We still want to ensure that we get sufficient cover and can meet our response standard across the whole of the county. And that's what we are still working to do. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. Do I have any further questions to the report? Councillor Sherwell.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank Chief Fire Officer for that very helpful intervention. We come at this from a slightly different angle. We have had 2 HMI reports which suggest that this service needs a radical overhaul. We have the HMI coming again next year. I think it's probably in the Fire Authority's interest to have a sensible response to what we have done about that and how we are doing it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the proposals that might be in here, but it certainly does include the recruitment activity that you're doing, but it needs to be there. We need to be shown to be willing to make progress. The second point I would make is about the word consultation. One of the problems with consultations generally is people leap up and down and say the fact that you're having a consultation, you've already taken the decision, it's pointless. And that's any consultation, people say that too, which is precisely why the lead members were right to say that they're not committed to the proposals in the consultation, because if they'd said that, then people would be really justified in leaping up and down and saying that you've made your mind up already. But the crucial thing about consultation too is that it gives people the opportunity to put forward alternatives. Now, we've heard a lot about why these proposals are believed to be unacceptable. Fair enough. but let's use the consultation to bring forward the alternatives. And if those alternatives are good enough, I will vote for them, and I'm sure colleagues will vote for them. Whatever the alternative, I mean, you could propose the alternatives. We've got to do something about the on-call service. We have fire engines that have been sitting almost idle for 5 years. They're not effectively part of the service. How do we make them part of the service? How do we make that work? Let's have some constructive views of moving forward in a different way. People want to move forward in a different way.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwell. Do you have anyone? Councillor Stutchbury and Councillor Carroll.
I think it's been illuminating and enriching. I note my name mentioned twice, and I note that they know. No, 3 times. Yeah, thank you. I note that they know where I live. I'm really privileged the fact that and although threats in that, I think that's not the way to carry on. But then I'm used to that because I am a Buckinghamshire councillor, so you get used to those sort of things. So I will think that we have to be round to clarity. And the question really out here in the dark, which is the real question here, is why wasn't this report brought forward earlier? Why wasn't these situations taken seriously earlier? And why did we get to where we are? And what were the 2 reasons or the main reasons we haven't done it? That would be a proportionate blame to individuals, but I'm bigger than that, so I'm not going to point the finger at individuals because I think that's catcalling and particularly childish. So I'm not going to go down that route. But I have been around long enough to see what it actually said, and I commend the chairman for giving more liberty to people to speak than previously was the case, because we only got to speak once, and if you had anything else to say, you'd be told you couldn't speak. So I think you've been immensely generous with your time speaking, and you're allowing me to carry on speaking. I think that's marvellous. But I do think that we ought to calm down a little bit. I do think we have one big responsibility here, which is not to frighten the public and to put out issues about decisions that haven't been taken and consultations that haven't been undertaken and things that have been planned to be done, and suggesting that they're inevitables and suggesting that there's decisions taken which are going to be taken or not taken by a democratic vote with people having papers put before them before it actually happens. I think it's pretty much called scaremongering. So I'm very happy to see how the energy goes. I'm very happy to see the report done because firstly, I'm a Democrat, and secondly, I wouldn't want to push my opinions on an individually, but only in the group sense. I was told once you could libel a party but not an individual, and that was a good advice. And I think that we need to move forward with this, and we need to actually get to where the evidence is. But my one question to the lead officer is, how can we have a consultation about something when already the consultation is taking place about an actuality that hasn't been agreed? And how do we then move forward a consultation with evidence which is clear and not defined and not been canvassed against? Because I worry that any consultation going forward after this may have been already damaged and may be not able to produce a clear and honest result. And that's a really important clarity question. So out of all this, very entertaining afternoon, very entertaining speakers, some wonderful things said, and some wonderful people speaking, and it's always interesting to see how the energies are there. But I think we have a responsibility to the residents of Milton Keynes and Buckinghamshire to be frank, honest and open. And I think if we're not frank, honest and open and put forward proposals for them to consider, at that point, that is when the consultation results would come back. At that point, this authority, if that is the chosen route, would make a decision. To say anything else beforehand is rather judging which horse is going to win the race at Newbury on the basis that you already put money on it. And I think we haven't put money on any horses, and we haven't betted on anything. All we've actually done is been responsible enough to look at the realities, what we inherited, and try to actually make some moves towards the economics and the financial stability of the authority based upon the evidence given to us and the people who presented us.
Thank you. I was just about to shut you up anyway because your time was up. But there we are, Councillor Stutchbury. You did in there ask a question about how we move forward. For my part, I think that may be more difficult than it might have been, but I'm sure we will
question for the officer.
Oh, was there a question to the
I think there
officer?
was a question
There
to
was.
the officer.
There was actually.
The,
I can't remember what the question was myself. The question,
just taking my lead from the opposition leader. Now,
Councillor
so
Such-
what I was question was how
Councillor
did you
Suchbury, I did note that your question was, how do we move forward when the items have already been debated? I answered myself and said that I thought that would be difficult, but I'm sure we would get there. I'll take no more on that particular point. Councillor Carroll, please.
thank you, Chairman. It's been a very interesting meeting, but just going on from the past speaker, it said about this idea coming forward. We squashed it in the last administration outright. We had no interest in it at all because it wasn't, as the chief just said, she just said it's nothing to do about finance at all. I've been on this authority for many years, probably too long, maybe, many roles, and it's all about community to me. And what I've heard today is going to shatter the confidence of our community. It really has. There's been people struggling for answers. They've been struggling for what they're doing. They're struggling in their roles. And to me, I've been quite appalled by it because I've been a long time. I've never been a political person as such. You started your presentation saying about political points. No, it hasn't been. It's all about speaking up for your community. And certainly, I'm never going to go along with this. It's not about, as the chief just said, it's nothing about finance. It's about public confidence, and it's going to shatter it.
Councillor, Dr. Buchanan would like to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. I suppose as the strategic sponsor for this piece of work, I just want to try and give members a bit of assurance around this, but probably just, I suppose, reiterate some of the points the Chief Fire Officer made around some of the challenges we have. You know, it's quite right, as the Deputy Chief said, that we have made significant improvement around our whole time service. But ultimately, when it comes to the on-call element of our response provision, we are failing to meet our commitment to the public in respect of being an excellent, modern, agile fire service. I think that's factual. The data speaks for itself. I think the councillor's point this a give up approach. I think officers see this as optimising the on-call stuff that we have. And I do genuinely believe that we can bring forward proposals that we have a confidence in that will increase public safety and will also provide better money, value for money for the taxpayer. We really anticipate that we can increase availability and resilience as well for our on-call. In terms of that kind of community and staff perception, some of the work that we've done already in terms of early engagement with staff and the public through focus groups has been really, really valuable in shaping up our final considerations around what we want to bring forward for public consultation. And actually the feedback we've had from staff and those focus groups is people can understand the problems that we're trying to resolve and understand that we need to do something differently. So that again gives us confidence as officers that we can present a case to members for an alternative approach that ultimately will provide better outcomes.
Thank you, Doug. I think that, oh, sorry.
Yeah, briefly, I'd just like to thank officers for this report, which was rushed because it was asked for at short notice. I think the officers' contributions have clarified the position here. In a national environment where on-call recruitment has been very difficult, I think it's absolutely the right move to look at different options for vehicles and different employment models. If the public are scared, is because the public have been told through social media that there are cuts to the service. This is about modernisation and change. It's about not staying in the past. And either one will support the consideration or the noting of this paper. I haven't lent my either opposition or support to proposals, but it's important that we engage with people at the correct time in an open way without giving them incorrect information and going forward to see what we can do with this. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burley. I think that concludes questions on the report. Oh, sorry, Councillor Addo, I didn't see you there. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I've been on the authority for a few years, not as much as most people, and haven't been in, coming in, I've experienced the phase that we've gone through of being on inspection and the due diligence, the work, hard work that the officers have done in order to get improvement. So, but what I'm hearing from colleagues is quite, I don't want to say it's disappointing, but I feel let down because if we have achieved so much, why are we talking about making changes just because we want to do something differently? Why do you need to do something differently if there's nothing you need to do? If it is working, I work in the health sector and we know what's happening currently with NHS England and the ICB. It's about trust. When we took so much out, patients, residents felt, oh my God, what's going to happen? So the way people think and what people want, we need to consider that. If there is no need to make a change or we have to do it gradually, all I'm hearing, two people have already mentioned, we need to do something differently. That shouldn't be what it should be. That's not what it should be. It's about what do we need to do. And, you know, the officer, Doug did say, it is factual that we need to make a change. If it is factual and there are concerns, how, again, I ask, did we get through inspection in the last inspection we had? You know, so I am really concerned that if we're doing so well or we've done so well, yeah, we need to improve. We need to do better. A system always needs to do more because you're meeting needs. But we just don't do that because we just want to do it. And we need the confidence of our residents. And I'm not just speaking because it's Stoking Church, but we need the confidence of our residents. And that to me is very important. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Aldo. I think Chief.
Thank you, Councillor Doe. I suppose I just wanted to again give some reassurance. We did well in the inspection because we worked incredibly hard. We got whole time numbers up, we made governance changes. But when it comes to looking at on call and through the lens of HMIC, I guess I'm reiterating what's already been said. Our response times are good. So the time it takes for us to get to somebody who needs our help is good. But we know we only need a certain amount of appliances to be able to do that. So I just wanted to give reassurance to members that we are not making change for change's sake. What I'm doing now as part of the step change process is going, okay, where else can we improve? And we know that we are spending a significant amount of money on a resource that we're not able to use. So that's why we are looking at this now. We think we can improve, we think we can increase availability, but to do that, we are going to have to look at what appliances we've got where and how we resource our on-call model. And that's part and parcel of what we're presenting to you and hoping to present to you in November.
Thank you, Louise. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. And Chief Fire Officer picked up an important point that I was going to make, is this is a on-call improvement programme. And there are a number, you know, we've talked about recruitment, on-call recruitment earlier on, and I think there are a whole variety of aspects in terms of doing that. My colleague referenced sort of evidential. What I picked up quite early on in terms of reading the papers was the internal audit report on workforce availability. That raised a number of serious questions about both in terms of numbers and then the ability to train those on-call firefighters. And that's what brought my attention to, is if we have a model that relies on this hybrid model, we need that hybrid model to be working in the most efficient way we possibly can. And that is what I'm interested to learn. And if my colleagues' comments about, you know, putting whole time fire engines into different places, the reason we're not in crisis is because we have managed to up the whole time recruitment. We're actually over establishment. We're using additional hours from whole time firefighters to help support that. But we're having to find other mechanisms to deal with some of the deficits that we have elsewhere. We didn't go into detail when we looked at the key performance indicators, but you only have to look at the on-call availability. and the availability of staff to say, well, that isn't right. We've got to do something about that. It's an inefficiency. And I'd like to think, particularly the colleagues here, I was going to say to my left, but I don't, Robin, efficiency is important here because we do have to consider not cuts, but value for money and trying to make sure we have the best improved service that we possibly can. So I remain very open-minded. I'm very open-minded to other suggestions and, and I think that will be helpful. And that's why I'm keen that we have this debate, because I do think it's important that everybody's point of view gets aired here and everybody's given the opportunity to participate as much as we can. And I think with the best will in the world, I think that's what the Chief Fire Officer and the team have been trying to do and through that process. So I think, let's get it out. Let's get the best ideas on the table. As my colleague, Councillor Sherwell said, we'll support the best ideas that are out there because, the only thing that's healthy is that continuous state of dissatisfaction where you're trying to improve, to get to a better place. And I think that's what we're trying to do here.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. We have no further questions.
Like a recorded vote, Chairman.
A recorded vote has been.
Yeah, I think perhaps if it gets formally proposed and then seconded, we did sort of move into a debate, but I think the debate has been aired. And then if it could be proposed and seconded.
So I propose from the chair that the report on the on-call improvement.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a request, and it just needs to be supported by two. The request needs to be supported by two other members, so that's supported, Chair. So we should go to a recorded vote.
Thank you.
So I will do a roll call by surname alphabetical order, and when I read your name, if you could please indicate if you're for, against, or abstain. Addo. Thank you. Bailey. Thank you. Banks. Thank you. Carroll.
Against.
Thank you. Exxon. Thank you. Hall. Thank you. Abstain. Thank you. Lancaster. Thank you. McLean. Thank you. Munger. Thank you. Priestley. Thank you. Rouse. Thank you. Sherwell. Thank you. Stutchbury. Paul. Thank you. Wilson. Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Thank you, Graham, and thanks all for attending this afternoon. I now close the meeting. Thank you.